What's up, folks? Welcome back to another edition of SHU Outdoors. My name is Mick. I'm your host. And on this episode, we're going to discuss the similarities and the differences between the New York State prison system and the federal prison system. And really, they're like night and day. I did 14 plus years in New York State prison, and I did another 10 years in the feds. And the only similarity between the two systems, honestly, is you're in jail in both systems. The conditions that you're going to do your time under couldn't be more different. So I say, hey, we'll start with New York and then we'll work our way into the feds. Yeah. So give you a little brief rundown of Rikers Island. Rikers Island is located in East Elmhurst, Queens, New York. It's a part of the Bronx County, but it's actually, Rikers Island is a part of the Bronx County, but it's actually, the bridge connects in right by LaGuardia Airport in East Elmhurst, New York, and the main drag down Rikers Island is Hazen Street. So you cross the bridge, you go through this checkpoint, now you're in the island, right? Rikers Island is made up of, I would say, about 10 different jails, and it's all considered, the pronunciation is a little weird. It's called the Corrections Department, City of New York. New York State is called New York State Department of Correctional Services. So their little badge says Corrections Department, City of New York. And on that island, you got Rosie M. Singer. I don't know if it's open or closed, but back when I was going through, it was open. That's the females building. You got a bakery on Rikers Island. They bake their own bread, and they wrap it up in like this wax paper, and they deliver it to the units. That's the way it was when I went through. I first caught my first state case. I went in 1997. And at that time, they probably had, on any given day, 15 to 20,000 people on the island. I think they done reduced the population a whole lot. But getting back to the buildings, then you got C-76. That's a county building. So if you get a year or less, you can do it in C-76. You can do up to 2 years running consecutive on C-76, or at least that's the way it was when I went through. It's called the county building. It probably holds maximum capacity 1,500 people. Then you got C-95. C-95 is a pretrial detainee building. And so if you're fighting your case for a misdemeanor or a felony, you could be in C-95. What makes C-95 unique is also known as the methadone building. So if you're detoxing off of some substance, or if you're on the methadone maintenance program, that's where you'll be in C-95. And it holds probably about 1,500 people. And then you're going to have C-73. The C-73 is just a pretrial detainee building, just like Rikers Island would be. I mean, just like C-95 would be, but they don't give methadone out in there. So if you're on methadone, you're going to be in C-95. Unless you're doing like a county bid in the C-76, they also give it out over there. But those are generally the only places they give it out, unless you're at NIC, which you're in a hospital, they give it to you there. I'm sure they do some boxing and all that now, but back when I was going through, they had a methadone maintenance program on C-95, and this was many, many years ago. Then you had C-73. That was more of a juvenile building who are fighting their case. They have juveniles in C-76 too in their own dorms. We would wear green and they would wear khaki. So I think historically speaking, or is it, maybe it's one of the others. C-74 might be the juvenile building and the state ready building. So when you get your state time, they put you in C-74. Then you got the Beacon and OBCC. Both of those are like high rises, maybe 8 or 10 floors. One's blue, one's red. The trim on the two buildings, right? I shit you not. And That's kind of a brief rundown of Rikers Island, the construction of it. And all these buildings hold anywhere between, maximum capacity, approximately 1,500 people, maybe even more. Then you used to have the tombs downtown Manhattan. Then then you had the barge over in the South Bronx, which you could be on. You don't have to be from the Bronx to be on the barge. Most of the people in the Bronx on that barge are probably from the Bronx, because it's right there in the South Bronx. I think it's closed down now, but back when I was going through, it was open for business. And you had some other, like the Brooklyn Navy Yard, maybe, but that was way back in the day. You also got a block on Rikers Island called HDM, but that's been closed for decades and decades. That was like the original jail on Rikers Island. I'm probably left something now because it's been a long time since I've been through there. But I did do 14 years in New York State Prison, and I did a couple of bids in New York. I didn't do it straight. Now, New York State Prison compared to federal prison, if I was ever in a position where I had to go back to jail and I had a choice between the two, and they put it to me like this: you could do 2 years in New York State, or you could do 1 year in the feds. I recommend, and I'd probably take 2 years in New York State. I know that sounds kind of weird and kind of crazy, but the conditions you're going to have to do your time under, okay, are literally like night and day. Now, I'm going to be very careful about the way I phrase this. New York State Prison and Rikers Island can be a very rugged, very dangerous place. And it's definitely not a cakewalk system. No, not at all. But on the flip side of that coin, once you get past Rikers Island, because Rikers Island is the county jail of New York City. So you got everything there, shoplifters, people who jump the train. Back in the day, I don't know if they're still locking people up for that type of stuff anymore, but when I was going through, they were. So that's the reason why you had so many people on the island. Then you got people who are in the same unit fighting serious cases, you know what I mean? So you got everything on Rikers Island. Now, I think that may have changed a little bit now, because I don't think they incarcerate people in the city for a lot of the things maybe they used to, or maybe they got mental health outreach or whatever they got going on. But somehow they figured out a way to drastically reduce the prison population. And I was just in New York, not even maybe 6 months ago, and it didn't seem to be overridden with crime to me. So I think it's probably safer than it used to be 30 years ago when they were locking everybody up. That's just one man's opinion. I'm sure other people have different opinions. So when you get into New York State Prison, back in the day, if you came from New York City, they would either send you to two places. One would be Ulster County, and the other one would be Downstate Correctional Facility. Both of them were receiving centers. One was a medium. Downstate was, Ulster County was the medium reception. It was dorms. Downstate was a maximum reception, and it was cells. Also, Downstate was all gray. It wasn't painted. It was just like cinder blocks. They never got around to painting. It looked like, like a big chunk of like stone with all these weird shaped units and stuff on it. It had a road that we used to go right past it. So you're going to be there probably about, 1 week to a month and a half. It just varies depending on who you are and where they send you. See, now we're going to get into why New York State is one of the most ruggedest jails, one of the ruggedest systems you could be in the country, but it's also could be one of the most kickback systems you could be in the country. All right? And there's a lot of reasons for that. So with the exception of one or two jails, right? 5 Points being one, and then the Shoe 200s that they built Like in, 96, 97, 98, when I first got my state bid, I ended up in mid-state. That's one of them 2 shoe hundreds. Um, in the max joints, they're all one-man sales, except for those two exceptions. So you'll be in a one-man sale. They all got, with the exception of maybe Attica and maybe one or two other places. That was in Attica too. You're going to be in a sale, and it's going to be bars on the front of the sale so you can see out. Okay? You can still smoke in New York State. You probably didn't know that, but you can only smoke outdoors. So they still sell them to you in a limited amount. When I was going through in the 90s, you could buy an unlimited amount and smoke anywhere you wanted to, chew tobacco, all that. But you can still smoke and chew tobacco in New York, but you're only allowed to do it outside. For all I know, they got vapes or stuff by now. I don't know. But that's the way it was the last time I heard about it. And, I was talking to some dudes when I was just up there. They could have changed it, but I'm pretty sure they didn't, because they made a big thing out of it. Now, that's one of the differences of New York, man. They actually put thought in the prison system. All right? Any jail you go to, you're going to have a whole array of vocational programs that, like, you're going to start, like, within a couple of weeks. Like, you're going to get there to whatever jail they're going to send you to. You're going to be there about a week, maybe a week or two, and they're going to call it what they call the programming committee. And then you're going to go over there and you're going to talk to these 2 or 3 people, and they're going to tell you, okay, you don't got a GED, you're going to school. They're serious about education in New York. And they're also serious about vocational trades. So you can literally learn how to be a welder, building maintenance, pipe fitting, engine repair, not just small engine repair, trucks and motorcycles, show you how to tear all that down and put it back together. And I mean, leather working, upholstery. They have like instructors that come in from the street that have their own vocational school, literally, okay? And they have a whole academic school, okay? And they're serious about, one of the things I give New York State kudos for is they're actually serious about rehabilitation, okay? Like, you have extensive programs that you can take advantage of, and you can definitely utilize to your benefit. They probably even have a college program there back again, because they had it before I started doing my bid. They took it away. They probably gave it back by now, and hopefully they did, because I think having an education and a skill is going to really help people not reoffend. Okay, now let's get to the prison politics aspect of New York State. Let's say that you're just a guy, okay, and you just want to go and do your time and not be involved in nothing. New York State would present you with a unique opportunity to do that. All right? Why? Okay, so if you're just a regular guy and you're not involved in any kind of gang activity or anything like that, you can go upstate New York, and if you don't want to hang out, so let me paint you this picture. You got one-man cells, the big long catwalk runs. Some of them's got 20 cells on a catwalk. Some jails might have 45 or so cells on a catwalk. It really just depends on what jail you land in. So you're in a one-man cell by yourself, so you don't have to live with a cellie. I think they tried to double bunk the first 1 or 2 cells on each range back in the day, because Pataki and Giuliani were trying to lock anybody up for anything. So those two really bankrupted the New York State prison system and made them rethink their whole approach. Their whole approach, but both of them was Republicans, and their whole approach was like anybody up for anything, etc. And they locked so many people up, it basically bankrupted the system, and that's the reason why they had all the reforms. It was because of Republicans. Nobody wants a madman on the streets running around doing what, but they lock anybody up. but I don't want to digress on that too much. So you're in a one-man cell. So when you go to the mess hall, you stand in line and you sit at the next available seat at that table. And then the officer tells you when to get up. If you're in a max joint, most mediums do it too, but some of them might let you kind of pick and choose. I think Livingston would let you sit anywhere when I was in there. But most of them, you're going to sit at the next available seat at the next table. And you're going to have about, 10, 12, 15 minutes to eat. And then they're going to tell you to get up so they can wipe the table and set the next crowd down. So you don't have to be accepted at a table, and you don't have a cellie. So that right there removes a whole lot of the political politics that are usually going to be in play in any federal prison. Because you're going to have a cellie, even in a USP, and you're going to have to be accepted at a table in order to be able to sit there comfortably without having to get worried about getting sucker punched or who knows what. So you got to be part of the fellows and feds. Where in the state, you just sit at the next, get your issue, go sit at the next table. Black guys, white guys, brown guys, everybody just sits wherever. So if you want to sit beside somebody, you make sure you get beside them in the line. So you got the next seat right there. You know what I mean? If you want to hang out, okay, if you want to hang out on what is referred to in most maximum, and they still call them correctional facilities in New York. If you want to hang out on a court, you're going to have to show your paperwork. All right? A lot of these jails are so old and behind the 40-foot walls, they got showers in the yard. Literally, man. Like every max joint that I ever been to, whether if it was Sing Sing, Attica, did Attica have showers in the yard? I was in C Block. I can't really remember. They all got weights and speed bags and heavy bags. I can't remember if Attica had showers in the yard or not. But they all have a bathhouse, and Auburn had them in the yard. Sing Sing had them in the yard. I was in long-term keep block in Elmira. I just went through there. They locked me down for about 2 months there. I think it was I Company 10 block. And then they moved me to another lockdown. Sent me to the two-man shoot. I've been to a number of different mediums in New York State. So it removes a lot of the politics. Now, if you want to hang out, then you go to show your paperwork. If you want to come and hang out on the court, if you want to be one of the fellas, if you want to be involved with whatever activities going on in that jail, if you want to be in the know, quote unquote, then you're going to have to show your paperwork, and dudes want to know what you're about. So you can almost remain anonymous in New York State, okay, if you choose to, unless you're some big high-profile guy, or you can get in the mix and deal with everything that comes along with being in the mix. So you get trailer visits about if you're married or you have family to come and see you. If you're in a max joint, maybe one or two mediums have trailer visits, but about every 60 to 90 days, depending how much of a list there is, your wife can come up and spend 48 hours with you, or your immediate family. You got an extensive weight pile, indoors and outdoors, in every jail. All right? Heavy bags, speed bags. You still can legally possess tobacco products. You're only allowed to consume them outside. Take your chances otherwise, if you're a grown-ass man. But you're allowed to possess them a certain amount, and you only can consume them outside. That's one thing that New York State's probably got on most other prison systems in the country. And the reason why, they made a big deal out of it when they were thinking about doing it, I was in the system at that time, and they said, we're not going to ban it because we've looked at all the other systems in the country that banned it, and they had nothing but corruption issues. So what we're going to do is we're going to phase it out and make it where you can only consume it outside. That gets rid of that right there addresses the Clean Building, Clean Air Act, and you can only possess a certain amount. Okay, so we're not going to be dealing with the same corruption issues that they have in these other state systems. We're going to get around that. And when I was going through it, you could get a package from you get 35 pounds from home every month, man. Canned food, different. It all had to be hermetically sealed, and they would get it in what they called the package room. You could go over there and get it. So you could get 35 pounds at one time, or your people could send you 2 or 3 different packages equaling up to 35 pounds throughout the month. You would get a commissary sheet, and it changed, but at time, no matter how much money you had in your account, it only showed $99. I think it went up as time went on. You go over there, you can get tobacco from home. I'm sure that you only can buy it from the commissary now, and it's very expensive. When I was first going through the system, a pack of tops cost about, I don't know, 35, 40 cents, something like that. Um, and like I said, man, if you go to New York State prison, you can make a choice. You have an option. You can stay out of the way, go out to the yard, do laps, off in Never Land, and you'll probably figure out what's going on. If you want to if you want to hang out and come over and kick it at the bench and the court and stuff like that, you got to show your paperwork. People want to know what you're about. Now, when it comes to white guys, let's talk about white guys and whatnot in New York State. You got two groups of white guys in New York State. You got guys from New York City, and then you got the upstate white guys, okay? And they get along. There's no beef necessarily, but it's like, anybody who ain't from New York City, if you're from a city of less than 5 million people, New Yorkers are going to consider you a hillbilly. But that's not really true. You know what I mean? Like Buffalo and Rochester, Syracuse, Albany, those are all official cities in their own right, hardcore urban areas. So, that's going to kind of be like the little kind of dividing line you got there. And you have a lot of real hardcore hillbillies in upstate New York, too. Little small towns like about 100, you know what I mean? Tobacco chewing, four-wheel drive, riding, yeah, cow farms, all that. When you're on a New York State prison bus and you're going through New York State, man, if they're going to send you like to Attica, which is the last place you'd ever want to find yourself in New York State, I would say that's probably the worst jail, and I'm sure there's some under contenders too, but they had that big right in Attica, and so now their security procedures is tight, man, and they're well known for having corrupt officers who ain't got no problem jumping you and doing you dirty.